So I think visually and physically, those are two of the areas that have taken leaps and bounds. But also, I mean, you look at the characters there around the car. You know, it's all the things that we're able to give a really strong representation of the sport in the game.
So it's, I mean, that just plays into this being a sports simulation, not just on track. You send people to the individual tracks to mirror the individual experience.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about, whether it's in the paddock, whether it's in the garage, whether it's around the racetrack. So working with Formula One over the years has definitely been great. So can you talk to me a little bit about how it being an international sport influences the development of this?
So I mean, I think the thing with Formula One is it's got a very strong following in Europe, and you know, through the game we've actually been able to really widen that as well throughout the world. And obviously now there's a lot of interest over here. You know, there's the Haas team, there's, you know, American races. You know, Fernando recently came over and did Indianapolis. You know, I think there's starting to become a real crossover in all of these forms of motorsport, and it's great that we can be part of that, because, you know, the gaming audience is quite different to the audience who watch these sports. So, you know, there's a real crossover between, you know, the guy who loves the sport and doesn't really play the game, and then we can bring them into gaming, or we can bring the gamer into the sport.
Is this late afternoon, or is this early morning? I can't tell.
I think this is an afternoon one.
Right.
And as you can see, we've got it balanced to be quite easy at the moment for the show, so people can get to grips with it. As you can see, we've got some of the classic Ferraris here, and the idea is that I'm in a super dominant 2007 Ferrari, which is up until this year one of the fastest Formula One cars ever built.
Well, I just wanted to comment that I like how Michael Bay joined the team and directed those lens flares earlier. It's really the lighting. I'm glad you chose this, because the lighting is really incredible here.
Yeah.
And one of the things that obviously you're too modest to mention, but you guys make great games, Lee. F1 2016 was a mid-80s Metacritic game.
Yeah.
It's the highest rating F1 game that I think you guys have ever released. And it's just, from the initial looks, initial impressions, you're just building off of that and creating more and more content in 2017.
Oh, definitely. And as you remember, last year we started with some real community feedback. We got the guys in nice and early. They gave us a lot of feedback on what we were doing. We did that even earlier this year. We managed to collate loads of really strong feedback on, you know, areas that they felt passionate about just as well, you know, as much as we do. So that's given us the opportunity to, you know, finesse the game even more. So, you know, talking about building a deeper career, you know, we've added in this year the ability to manage the engine and gearbox. You know, that's such a major component of the sport. It's something we're hearing so much about this season. And we break the engine down into the different components as well, so that the player has to manage certain elements of the car. So it might not, you know, it might not be a complete engine failure. It could just be one particular area. You know, so we give the player that whole. It's like a management mode within the game as well.
So we've talked about it being a simulation a lot. We've talked about how true to life, how true to form this game is. But take it from the other side. If I'm a novice in the world of F1, how can this game bring me into the world, bring me into the allure of how sexy these cars are and how fast the sports are and everything?
So I think you can probably see from, you know, I'm chatting away to you, and I'm still happily getting around the circuit. You know, I've got a degree of assist on at the moment.
Well, you just mentioned you've worked on the game for 9 years.
Yeah, I could maybe play it in my sleep, but you know, I'm not particularly paying much attention to what I'm doing here with it on the track. And yet, you know, the assists are really helping me make those corners. They're really helping me to brake for them. But also, we've got, you know, the little tutorials in the game as well. And when you first start playing the game, your initial experience has button prompts to help you learn what you're doing as well. You know, it's because there's an element of people who, like I say for example, somebody like my dad who loves the sport of Formula One. He might want to play the game, but he's not a gamer. You know, and we want to be able to enable him to enjoy it just as well.
Perfect.
Let's have a quick look at the replay. We'll take a look at some of these beautiful classic cars.
All right. So can you walk us through what all cars we're going to see on screen here, if you don't
Oh, you're going to challenge me now. So the player's driving the 2007 Ferrari. There's the 1992 Williams, and then somewhere in there I think there's a 2002 and a 2004 Ferrari, I believe. I struggle with those two.
I can't challenge you on that information, so I'm going to take you at face value. But yeah, the game looks absolutely stunning, stunningly. This is this is we're actually really close to launch. We're coming out on August 25th.
August 25th, yes.
And where it's a worldwide release,
Yes.
and that's right between 2 different GPs.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a great time to release the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's always a great window where the excitement around the sport's really good. You know, and people, we traditionally, we look at the stats and you see people always jump straight on the game after the race as well.
Right.
So we can see there's real spikes when it becomes really popular. So we get in so much great support from the teams as well. You know, they're always tweeting about our game. We're always following those guys. You know, there's a real feeling of the sport's really on the up at the moment. It's getting very exciting.
So Lee, you just mentioned that this game comes out in the middle of the F1 season. So how do you update when, because there's rule changes, there are different things that happen mid-season, there are team changes. How and when do you keep this game, since it is a simulation, it is a real life license game, how do you keep that current? How do you update post-launch?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll keep an eye on the performance of the cars throughout the season, and if there's any major changes, those are things that we'll certainly address.
Right.
And also, you know, you see the teams regularly change liveries or make changes to the physical, you know, attributes of the car, the model of the car, and those are things that we can patch in, you know, post-launch over the course of the rest of the season. You know, like we did last year, we want to try and keep the game relevant for as long as possible, make sure that the players experiencing what they see when they watch the sport on TV.
So if Ferrari decides that they're just not going to have their engines work very well anymore, you can nerf those cars essentially in game.
We could adjust performance. We would never touch reliability, so that's something that's in the players' hands. That's how they manage things. You know, it's entirely up to the player. If they got engine problems, that's their problem. That's how they've managed things. They've not developed the right part of the skills tree, for example.
Right.
Maybe they've not worked hard enough on the reliability. Maybe they've concentrated too much on another area. I was going to quickly rewind back and just highlight a bit of a beautiful classic. There it is. So we've got the McLaren. Right, there's the McLaren MP44, and what we've done for that as well, we've added support for a H pattern shifter and clutch as well. You know, that car was a old school, hardcore driven, you know, in that way. So you know, we wanted the player to be able to experience that as well.
Very cool. And this is actually that 44 is part of the Legacy Edition.
So that's the DLC car. It's not DLC. Sorry, that's the pre-order car.
Right, exactly.
So if you pre-order the game, you'll get access to the MP44.
Yeah, so for all physical formats, that is in the Day 1 edition. If you pick up the game on Day 1, you will receive this additional car.
Yeah, and all 12 classic cars, minus the pre-order car, are all on disc. You'll have all of the cars from the beginning, so all 11 teams will be there, plus the McLaren, obviously, if you pre-order.
So very cool. Well, this has been F1 2017. Lee Mather over from Codemasters showing off the game. It's coming out on August 25th for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Lee, any parting words before you leave it for all the fans of F1 across the world?
I mean, I'd like to thank everybody for the reception we got last year. You know, 16 did so well. It's given us the standing to build, you know, something even bigger, something even more exciting, you know, and that's been really exciting for us. You know, it's really given us all a great boost. The sport this year, 2017, the cars, that's totally different for us, but bringing in the classics and integrating them into the career in the way we have, I think is something different, it's something unique. It'll really give the players something to get their teeth into.
Right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Kingdom Come Deliverance here on Square Enix Present.